We are going to stay away from it. No puns today, but this one is going to be really hard. I'm going to have to bite my tongue, but it's an outstanding guest today, and it's a one that I didn't know a lot about, and I am so happy that I'm involved in InGoal Radio, the podcast, to learn about athletes such as Beck and his journey and where he has arrived in a short period of time. Welcome to InGoal Radio, the podcast. Darren Millard with David Hutchison and Kevin Woodley, the co-founders of InGoal magazine. Boy, you guys can come up with some great contacts week to week. This time around, Woodley, Hutch, I give you all the credit in the world because this is a story that just had to be told in the right way.
Actually, we'll pass the stick taps along to Ray Petkow from Alpha Hockey Agency because, I mean, obviously we were aware of this because we have a relationship both with him and the Net 360 camp that him and Adam Francilia run, and a lot of these goaltenders, including our guest Beck Warm. So we knew the background, but Ray just sort of provided a really nice reminder of how special this was when he, put it out on Twitter when Beck got called up to the Carolina Hurricanes, and who was there to greet him but James Reimer, that James was also his mentor on mentorship day at Net 360 6 years ago as as you'll hear, as a very young undrafted goaltender coming off a very tough first taste of the Western Hockey League. There was James Reimer then, and there was James Reimer waiting. And trust me, we've talked to Reimer, and we'll have something at ingoalmag.com about that conversation, waiting very eagerly to welcome Beck Warm to the National Hockey League.
The part that strikes me, Hutch, is his work behind the scenes didn't get him noticed immediately. Didn't get him noticed down the road by necessarily the Western Hockey League or the National Hockey League, and then turn around and it's just a meteoric arrival into the National Hockey League onto this taxi squad. It's two strikingly different ways to get things done.
Everybody has a different path, don't they? I've actually been fortunate to know Beck a little bit longer, even before those Net 360 days, because he's got an older brother who is now a friend of mine and a former student of mine. And I remember we had started this InGoal journey, and his brother Phelan reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've got a brother who's a pretty good little goaltender," and this would have been sort of peewee days. And I thought, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. And I've followed his career along ever since. And I remember that first game in the Western Hockey League that Woody references in their interview today. And I was pretty excited to see how Beck did in that game, and have followed along ever since. And he's worked with a whole pile of people that we have since come to know over the years through InGoal. So it's just been a funny, two worlds colliding for me. And he's earned every bit of this. He's a ferocious worker. We were in the gym with he and Adam Francilia last summer as we were passing through Kelowna, and saw the work that he was doing. Just incredible stuff. He is so detailed in everything that he does. But one of those guys, as so many do, that I think has been passed over at every level to an extent because of his height at 6 feet tall. But has refused to let that hold him back, and has just worked his tail off. He's a real technician out there. It's just incredible to see everything that he's done, and just so excited to see how this has come together for him. And I think every year we've had guys reach out to us from higher levels, including the NHL, saying, who do you see out there who maybe we haven't noticed? And Beck's been the first name at the top of that list. Certainly for me, and I think near the top for Woody as well. So to see that that's all coming to be for Beck, I couldn't be happier, because he's just a fantastic young man. And I think actually, another thing that comes up in this interview that you'll hear is him talking about that relationship with those older pros at Net 360 and how much they meant to him. And Kevin asked if he'd be like that himself at some point, and he certainly already has. I've seen him being that way.
He thought of it.
Yeah, I've seen him being that way as an older sort of Western League goaltender, working with younger kids as well. And he's been a mentor himself already, and so really, really happy for Beck.
Yeah, he's so dialed in on his details that I've seen him actually teaching some of the sort of new mechanics of goaltending to other goalie coaches. Not teaching, but helping explain them to other goalie coaches like high level goalie coaches at these camps. So he's not just mentoring the young goaltenders. He's actually helping explain some things that he's learned along the way to other guys. There's a lot to like. What you said about the height is probably true, Hutch, and unfairly, and you're right. We do get those, teams looking to sort of sign an undrafted free agent, and we see a lot of different goalies and who you're looking at. And I may or may not have texted a few guys that ignored that recommendation over the past couple of seasons to point to, hey, you see this guy we told you about 2 years ago? Notice he's 4-1 or 5-1 with a .944 save percentage and just got an NHL deal. I told you.
That's money for you, right? That's currency for you too. Anybody who ignored that now will take your opinion tenfold going forward.
Oh, and then we just need to find another guy who warranted as much as Beck. So it's been fun to watch, and as you'll hear in this interview, just such a great kid as well. It comes through, and as James said, I think this is a credit to. And you said we found the story, but the truth is, our exposure to a lot of these kids and a lot of the pros comes through access, and in this case, access through Net360. And I think this is a really good example of, that program working and the mentorship role that these guys play. And as James told me, Beck's part of that family now, has been for a while, but really is now. And he's like the little brother. So that's the type of relationships that are built within that framework. That's how they've structured that. And so I think a lot of the credit goes to them. We're just blessed that we get to sort of be a part of it and meet these guys, see these relationships form, and get to learn from all of them the way they do each other.
It's a story about perseverance. It's a story that inspires you. It's also a story that will give you lessons. So whether you're a parent or whether you're an athlete, about how you handle yourself in certain situations. Training is one of those, and also in game and getting comfortable. Look forward to the conversation. He's dialed into the details, much like those at the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, source for sports Surrey. Cam and the gang are all over it right now in one of the busier times of the year for the Hockey Shop and the goaltending department, Woody.
Yeah, because we got another launch. Big day. This is a big day. Bauer Hyperlite. You guys all saw it on the social medias, our social media, and probably some others. Jake Ottinger with that sweet, what do they call that? Their blackout look for the Dallas Stars. And he had his brand new Hyperlights with the black with the neon green accents. Today's the day. Today is the day that you can go on the Bauer Customizer and design your own Hyperlite set, your own neon green accents. And what does that also mean when we have a launch? It's not just that you get to design your gear and customize your gear and learn about all these new features that we're going to talk with Cam about in the gear segment here in a few minutes, but it means you can order it. And where else would you order it but from Cam and from the Hockey Shop and thehockeyshop.com? We go over some of the main details today in the gear segment, but if you want all the little, like every little custom choice you can make and why, not just that you can make it, but why you should choose one over the other, how does it fit your style or your game? The Hockey Shop, Cam Matwiv and his staff, they're the guys to talk to. They're the guys to place that order through when it's time to buy your set of the new Bauer Hyperlite pads. And if you're looking to save some money, last generation, there's not much left, frankly, of the Bauer 2X Pro stock, the one that preceded this. But what he has got left is on sale at over 20% off now. So make sure you check them out, whether you're trying to save on the last generation or you want to place your order on the next generation of Bauer's Vapor line. Give him a call at the Hockey Shop or thehockeyshop.com.
Let me just put it this way. I can order my gear from anybody. I have enough contacts to reach out and get it anywhere, any way possible. And I go through the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, source for sports Surrey, because of customer service, price point, and expertise. It's not even close. Give them a shout. And the 1-800 number is coming up if you happen to live outside the area. It's my favorite part of the gear segment. But this week, I'm so excited about the Bauer Hyperlite line. It's fascinating what they've done with the technology, and skinning has come a long way. So looking forward to it. This is the gear segment presented by the Hockey Shop, source for sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com. The Unveil with Woody and Cam.
Welcome back to the Hockey Shop Source for Sports, and another exciting day with Cam Matwiv. Fresh gear. Adolescent me is having nightmares right now. But adult me is really excited about the new Hyperlite line from Bauer, which the customizer is launching live today as we bring you this on the podcast with a few more details like we did with some of the other launches. You can go on the customizer and build your own right now, but there are features. There are new features. There are new choices. There is a new knee. There is a new flex profile. There is a new core. There is lighter weight. So I'm going to start with Cam. Like, what to you is the biggest change in the new Hyperlite line from Bauer?
So one quick note before, with that, you can create your custom order and you can submit your custom order today and get your order started with the chance of getting it before full-on launch of the gear in May. So get those orders in. Give us a call, 604-589-8299. We'll get your order set up. But let's talk about the pad.
Okay, let's talk about the pad, because you're right. That is the thing. Like, you have them. You have a demo set. That's the other beauty as we get out of COVID is the Hockey Shop has demo sets. You can go try it. But right now, this is not technically in stores. You won't see it on the shelf for another couple months. You can, however, order your own. And in order to order your own, you need to know what the features are. So Cam's the best guy to talk to. You can call him in person, or you can just watch this and get some of the highlights.
So, as you alluded to a little bit early on, new knee. So, as opposed to Stabila Slide, this is called Stabila Flex. So, what that means is the actual knee is still integrated into the core of the pad itself. However, we got a bit more lateral flex to it, so it feels a little bit softer as you're kind of driving down into the ice. Also, horizontal flex in the actual knee itself. So, this gives us a little bit more gap area between the actual knee and the calf plate, allowing the pad to flex in a little bit more without binding up on that calf plate itself.
Yeah, and that is that, like, this is a more flexible pad than the ultrasonic, significantly more flexible, as you can see. And part of that is having that gap between the knee and the calf plate, giving it room to flex down. It's also, as we turn it to its side, you can see it's got a more of a rounded, that sort of traditional S curve compared to sort of that single break at the knee and then straight lines that you had with the ultrasonic. Soft, flexible boot. So this is a pad that's designed to sort of move more with your leg, but retain all the qualities that we've come to know since Odin in terms of, you know, that sort of stiff inner edge, the fast sliding, the active rebounds. In fact, the rebounds are even hotter coming off this pad. They've changed the core inside, cut some weight in terms of the core. They also cut some weight in terms of the knee, because that Stabila Slide knee in the ultrasonic, like, it's a heavier product. 15%. We haven't had a chance to test it yet with live ammo. We've had it on the ice, but not with sort of live ammo, hard pucks. 15% more livelier, according to their research, with the changed core. So those hot rebounds you've come to associate with the Bauer lines just got even hotter.
Stand by for some quantification of this percentage. We will get this out on ice. We will film some testing in it for sure. But that's some great, exciting news. They already had awesome rebounds.
Yeah, it's called the Rebound Boost Core, just to give it a proper name. That's what they're calling this one. So in other words, when you already have the most active rebound in goaltending, to add to it, you need to give it a new name. It's called the Rebound Boost Core. Like I said, 15% is the claims there. The other big difference is the balance plate, Cam, and I'll have you sort of turn that pad over and show us what we mean. This is basically a foam padding on the inside of the calf to sort of help you balance in the butterfly. You know,
that's a better around, so it's not upside down.
Attaboy, upside down.
There we go.
So you can see that, and it's sort of a soft foam to give you a little more stability in the butterfly as you're pushing around on the ice, sort of keep the pad from tipping or tilting as much as the Stabila Flex knee does that as well, and keeps that seal so good. This helps redistribute the weight and sort of prevent any chance of you getting off the edge of the pad and sort of causing it to tip. Also just creating a great seal. So I've seen some of the heat maps that they have in terms of how the pad balances based on this knee and that calf working together. And it's pretty impressive. It's a real broad distribution across the pad that allows you to, and then of course with the hard inner edge, you get that active, that sort of real easy sliding material.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you've hit all the key points right there. Again, that big flat seal being, you know, the biggest talking feature of that, especially as you're going to go load and push up. You're not getting that tip and roll in. You're getting that nice flat push across. So no holes by the boot.
Any other details? Like the biggest thing to me is that this is a more flexible, like again, the Vapor line, which this is part of, designed to be a more flexible pad, a more sort of soft isn't the right word, but a lot more flex to it. There were differences between the Supreme lines and the 2X Vapor lines. I think the kind of finally got to a point where you can say it's not just more flexible than ultrasonic, but it's actually a flexible pad where you can quantify it and sort of say this is a pad that has some of that curve, some of that feel. That
they are truly different now. They are truly different. You know what? There are a few other key points, but I like being a tease, and being that this is a teaser video, I say we move on.
All right. So there, if you want any more details about the new Hyperlite line, you've seen it in the NHL. We'll have full reviews later on. The glove, out of the box, just great feel, sort of that 590 break. We'll get into specifics later, but this is the glove that sort of got Cam Talbot in their gloves. Got more questions? Make sure you give Cam a call. Get on that customizer, customize your own sets. And then when it's time to order, make sure you give this guy a call to make sure you get the specs you want. If you got any other questions, where do they get you again?
604-589-8299.
1-800?
1-800-567-7790.
We'll have to double check that. Unbelievable. All right, Cam, thanks for having us down at the Hockey Shop Source for Sports.
Thanks, Kevin.
There's a lot going on there. Tell me honestly, at times when you do those segments with Cam, is there a danger of going like 25 minutes because there's so much?
Yeah, we may or may not in the early going of making this a simulcast have exceeded the max length that we didn't. I don't think anybody really knew there was a max length on Instagram stories, the IGTV version. Of course, we take this. Yeah. Anybody who's listening to this, you can watch a simulcast video that we create of it. We may have exceeded the length a few times early. We are trying to get it down under 5 minutes. That one was a little longer. Because it's exciting. Like this is new gear. And I'll be honest with you, like you heard some of the numbers there that I ran. This is a big one for Bauer. Like this is the Vapor line has been designed to be their more flexible alternative to the Supreme line, which of course is now ultrasonic. And this is the biggest step I've seen towards that. They added flexible boot before, but this pad truly has a different profile, a different flex profile. And at the same time, they've actually upgraded the skin in terms of more active rebounds and measurably, even better sliding. And so there's a lot to be excited about here. And in fact, Beck Warm is in them now. He has made his maiden voyage as a guy who always wore a softer pad and a more traditionally built and shaped pad. He switched to the Bauer, tried it this off season when he was skating up in Kelowna, really liked the feel, and now he's in the Hyperlite. So if I was a good interviewer, I would have included this in the main feature interview, but I may have forgotten, had to hit him back up to ask him this. But let's hear from Beck Warm and let's have the new pro tell us just how good the Bauer Hyperlite pad is.
Yeah, no, they're awesome with the Hyperlites, with the softer boot. I just love them. They sit where I want them to. But they still have that same seal that the ultrasonics had, which I love. So, I just think just with the strapping and with the rebounds and how light they are, just everything about them is just I feel like it suits my game, and just they just fit right.
Feel more like because the ultrasonic, very stiff, rigid pad and designed to be that way. Yeah. Does the Hyperlite truly feel more like a traditional, I don't want to use the word soft, but flexible pad when it's on your leg, even though the performance in terms of sliding and rebounds isn't what we would normally associate with a quote unquote soft pad? Like, have they found that balance?
I think they have. Yeah. I think it's kind of got the best of both worlds, because I remember I was in the ultrasonics my first couple games in Chicago, and I really liked them because they'd broken down quite a bit. So they're like nice and soft and curved to my leg, and the boot was super flexible after that kind of while I was using them. And then when my Hyperlites came in, I wore them the day before the game and wore them the next night in the game or the next afternoon in the game. So one ice time, and then I was in them. So They just felt how they should. I don't really know how to explain it, but they just fit right.
Okay, and like the glove and the glove break-in process, you've obviously got comfortable there. I'm guessing you're in sort of what we would associate on the CCM side with a 590 break, which is the stock Hyperlite break. Is that
Yep,
correct?
correct.
Okay. Now here's the one question for you, because we always used to say a blocker is a blocker. Tell me the difference on that Bauer blocker.
The pucks just fly off of it. It's crazy. Like, honestly, you don't have to place it anywhere. It hits the blocker, and obviously you want pucks to go to the corner up into the netting. So if the puck's coming at your blocker, I just leave it there and it just flies off into the netting. So it's what you want.
First time you're on the ice sliding in a Bauer pad, and the first time you took a shot off the wing off the pad and the rebound came off there, what was the reaction to both of those things?
Surprising. Very surprising. Yeah, I remember, I think it was shot off the pad in one of my first practices, and I watched it and it went like all the way down to the other end off just like a far pad shot. And I was like, hey, well, that's different. That's pretty cool.
Isn't that interesting? The blocker, it's probably the least talked about piece of equipment that you look at every time you watch a hockey game. We talk mask graphics, glove saves, pads that we can all see. The upper body is hidden, but blockers, nobody ever talks about. I love that conversation, that little tidbit.
Well, and I will say that I think that conversation, like for the longest time, like CCM changed it. Like the blocker's not just a blocker. Like you saw guys in the National Hockey League, like in other brands, accept the blocker because CCM had built this really protective, really well balanced blocker. And where Bauer sort of changed the conversation and advanced it and become part of that, a blocker is not just a blocker, is through these active rebounds off this thing. And this isn't the first time we've heard it, right? Remember Craig Anderson switched to the Bauer gear last year. That was one of the things that he noted, like having to actually adjust because he no longer had to try and punch a rebound to get it out of the rink. He just had to turn his wrist, and a hard enough shot is into the glass. Like it really is, for all the focus on active rebounds and even more so now in the Hyperlite and the way pucks come off the pads, that ability to kill a play with a flick of the wrist because of how hot it comes off this blocker is another, sort of feather in the cap of these new lines that they've created. It's really, it's noticeable. Every tester that we've had that's been in it for the first time for all the, like, especially the last, I want to say 2-3 generations, has noticed it right away.
From falling in love with a blocker to becoming a blocker, let's get into Beck's story and where he came from and where he is now. And just the Coles Notes version, if you can, Hutch, explain to us his journey. And I'll give you the baseline. Born in Whistler, and you'll hear some of that. But this is a kid that was about 10 years old in doing the math in 2010, Sidney Crosby's golden goal. He was around the Athletes Village in Whistler and the slopes and the alpine events. So he was right there at the foot of the Olympic Games in 2010. And I wonder if that stoked his enthusiasm for athletics. But he fell in love with the game. And give us an idea, in major junior hockey, he has to really battle his way in, and in the National Hockey League, he has to battle his way in.
Yeah, well, not just the Olympics, but Whistler, BC is such an athletic community. You're just surrounded by people where athleticism is their life, and what a fantastic place to grow up. Yeah, I hadn't actually thought about that being around 2010 and the Olympics before this, and that's about the time that Woody and I first met and got InGoal rolling as well. So it's been fun to grow up with all of this, and yeah, I mean. To go from undrafted into the Western Hockey League, which I think a lot of kids find to be sort of a crushing thing when it happens, because I can tell you from experience now that those years leading up to the Bantam draft, as much as we tell kids it shouldn't matter, they do make a big deal of it. Quickly overcame that hurdle because he played his first major junior game at 15 years old. And, right. Tri-City, an organization that, of course, brought Carey Price, Eric Comrie, another guy that we know well, who played there, to overcome that and then to end up in the Western Hockey League very quickly after that as well. I think just every time, it's not even just a matter of long-term persistence. Beck beats that door down in a hurry because he overcomes those things very quickly. Not drafted into the National Hockey League, but making an impact all the way through to become not just a starter in the Western League, but a guy playing 60, 65 plus games. One of those guys highly sought after at the trade deadline and moved to Edmonton, who had WHL championship aspirations before the season got shut down due to COVID. Push right through that, and here he is on his first NHL contract. So he's breaking down barriers and he's making a name for himself.
And the American Hockey League, Woody, and I give it the sort of the bio before you hear the interview because it's important. He goes to the Chicago Wolves as an American Hockey League rookie, a professional rookie, and just like owns it to the point where he gets the promotion to Carolina.
Yeah, like 5-1 with a 944, and it's a small sample and all that, but he clearly showed something, gets the contract, clearly demonstrated something. And I think you've talked to guys over the years, Darren, you know, like a lot of people might be like, American Hockey League, you know, first year pro, that's a good start, but you know, why are you guys so excited about this? Like that is the jump when you talk to guys. That is the toughest for most. That is the biggest for most. Like so many goalies that I have talked to over the years, and many of them on this podcast as guests, like what's the bigger jump, junior to the AHL or the AHL to the NHL? And I've yet to hear a guy say the bigger jump is AHL to NHL. It's always the biggest, toughest step is junior to the American League. And he goes from, like Hutch said, having his junior season cut short in March, not playing any games until he arrives with the Chicago Wolves in January, has that start, earns the contract, earns the call-up. Like, you know, it's preparation meeting opportunity, and the preparation pays off, but also the preparation is what got him the opportunity in the first place, and then you have to make the most of it. So as you'll hear in this interview, we've talked about all the different coaches he worked with, but also another name we've heard before. I had almost forgotten how big a role he credits him for, but the mindset to be able to handle that opportunity and make sure you're not overwhelmed by it. Pete Fry, somebody that Beck has worked with over the past couple of years quite a bit, and he talks a lot about. This interview starts about this feel-good story, but we get into technical and we get into mental game, and he shares a lot of valuable tips that I think a lot of young goaltenders could benefit from.
He grew up at the base of a mountain, and now he's on his way to the top. Beck Warm, the feature guest on InGoal Radio, the podcast.
Hey, but just before we jump to that feature interview, Darren, I think we have forgotten to mention our good friends at Sense Arena. And I know you thank them a million times over before we go into these interviews, but I just wanted to jump in because Woody and I actually had a conversation with Bob Tativa, the founder of Sense Arena, this week. And it was a fascinating conversation because he laid out for us what the next year looks like for Sense, and we're not going to spill the beans here. The other part that was really cool was that he had Dominik Hasek in the office for 90 minutes a couple days ago. Yeah, so he had the Dominator reviewing Sense Arena in the office, and fascinating to hear his takes on it. The best story is, as realistic as Sense Arena is, and it is an incredible experience when you first put that headset on. I guess they have a net set up in the office, and it's all, you know, calibrated to the system as you can do at home with your own net. And Dom puts the headset on. He goes back to his post. He reaches out for the post. It's 1 centimeter off. So Bob's like, well, you know, we might not be perfect right down to the centimeter, but anyway, just great fun and great to hear Bob lay out what the year looks like. Just so people know, Sense Arena brings out sort of large updates. I think it's about 3 times a year things happen where they put in big things, but then they also push new things all the time out to your headset. Without any fanfare, without even saying much, something new might sort of suddenly appear there. And it might be something subtle from when Maddie jumped in here and said, hey, there's an ad on the rink boards for Maria Mountain and Goalie Training Pro. This week, it was a new training plan being available. And one of the great things about Sense Arena, you're not just left to your own devices to just go in there and do whatever drill you want, although you can. One of the big updates this year was adding in the ability to put training plans into the system. And they came with a few, including one from our good friend Bill Ranford of the Los Angeles Kings, and have since pushed out a few more. And one of them this week was from Brian DeCord, the director of goaltending for the Arizona Coyotes, and also the head of Stop It Goaltending in Boston. And so Stop It Goaltending has their own set of training programs you can work through on Sense Arena. It's just a chance to work for 8 days through a number of drills that they've crafted for you. They sort of take the base drills of Sense Arena, and then they'll tell you this is how many reps, and they decide where the shooters are going to come from and the type of shots that you're going to work with. And I think that direction just gives you something as you go on there. It's like the difference between skating on the ice and having that well-directed goaltending coach who says, here's what we're doing today, and here's the reason we're doing it, and here's what it's going to do for you, versus the goalie coach who comes up to you in practice and says, hey, what do you want to work on today? And most kids just look at them and say, I don't know. So if you're one of those guys who doesn't really know what he wants to work on today, you can hop into one of these training programs like the new one from Stop It Goaltending and use Sense Arena to really hone your game. And as I've said a million times before, and I'll say it again, Sense Arena is like a cheat code for goaltending. And I have a feeling that a guy as detailed as Beck, our feature interview this week, would want to check out Sense Arena, because I know he reached out to us and wanted to know our feelings on it so that he can get into it a little bit himself. So from Sense Arena, our great sponsor for the podcast and the feature interview, to Beck, a guy who'll be using it soon, I'm sure.
Beck on the journey, Sense Arena, and he has great senses. Like, the intuition of this kid is unbelievable. You'll get a sense of it as you listen to the conversation, and his observations in working with professionals at the Net 360 camp is also very striking. We'll comment on that after you listen to Beck in the National Hockey League, hanging out with Kevin Woodley on InGoal Radio, the podcast, brought to you by Sense Arena VR.
Beck, so good to have you on here. Like, probably should have done this a while ago, but waiting sometimes is not a bad thing either, because now we've got you on the road in the show, National Hockey League. It has been a big run for you to this point, like to go from the WHL and finishing your career there and everything that goes on with COVID, to signing a contract in the American Hockey League, to signing a contract in the NHL, to on the ice in the NHL for practice on the taxi squad. Like, can you walk us through the past couple of months for you, from the uncertainty to the contract in the A and to this whirlwind up to this point? What's it all been like?
It's definitely been a lot of things going on and a lot happening just with kind of the whole COVID situation. But like everyone says, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and everybody's path is different to get to where they want to be. So I think I definitely have a different path than most. So it was in the summer and just training, trying to figure out where I'm going to play this year. And then in the fall, got that offer from Chicago to sign an AHL deal, and then took that. Had to wait around for my visa for a while. So I missed all of camp and got to Chicago in start of February, and then just kind of picked it up from there. And one thing led to another, and started playing some games, and then signed with Carolina, and now called up here.
Okay, so like one thing led to another, somewhat modest there. I think one thing led to a 5-1 record with a .944 save percentage and a shutout in your first taste of pro hockey in the American League. But before we get to some of the specifics and the adjustments you had to make, because that's a pretty big step. I've had guys tell me that the biggest step is quite often not to the National Hockey League, but actually out of junior to the AHL, or out of college to the American League, and you made it so seamlessly. So I got a bunch of questions on that. But first, I want to go back to the picture that your agent Ray Petkow tweeted out after you got called up to the Carolina Hurricanes taxi squad. You and Reimer on the ice in the NHL with Carolina, and then you and Reimer on the ice in 2015 at the Net 360 mentorship. Well, you're at the camp that week, but you're there. That's the mentor day where all the NHL guys kind of work with the junior guys. So you're, quick math, you're 16 or 15, probably just had your birthday at that point. So 16? Yeah. Do you remember that? Like, was that your first Net 360 camp?
Yeah, I think that was my first Net 360 camp. Yeah, I just remember it being such a cool experience, like finding out that the NHL guys were going to be out with us and we got to kind of like do drills with them and chat to them. So, yeah, no, just the whole program they have there is just, it's all about mentorship and just kind of being able to talk to guys and realize that kind of you can be in that position one day. So, yeah, no, props to Ray and everything going on at 360 because that's yeah, it's an unbelievable program.
Flash forward to you get called up to Carolina for the taxi squad. You get onto the ice on the practice. Like what was that like the first time? Like, and it's James Reimer. How much more comfortable does it make you that it's a guy you've been on the ice with in the summers probably ever since that mentorship camp?
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Like I've seen Rhymes kind of every summer since then, and especially kind of last summer and in the fall there, we spent a lot of time in the gym together and on the ice. So yeah, no, it's great to have a familiar face and just to be able to see him and chat to him and stuff. Yeah, he's made my time up here for the first kind of week or so just that much more comfortable.
Now, obviously, it's not a full circle thing because the path, there's still a lot of runway ahead of you in terms of the path. But did it kind of have that feel, that moment where, that the fact he was there for that first skate in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, no, it was such a cool moment. I think when that kind of the pictures of me and him when I was 15 to the picture of us last or a couple days ago when that kind of came out, it kind of hit me. That was like, whoa, like that was 6 years ago or whatever it was, and now we're together here. So it's yeah, no, it's such a cool thing to see.
Okay, now for those who don't know, as you said, off the ice, you've had a chance to work out with him. You train in Kelowna. We go back a fair bit. I remember seeing, I think actually the first time I met you was on the ice in Burnaby, out at 8 Rinks, where I know you've worked with Sean Murray. But I think that day it was with Lyle Mast. You spent times in the summer working with Adam Francilia, obviously a Ray Petcow client. So for those just tuning in, there's the background where we kind of have worked with you at these next 360 camps and different things. Like, how much easier does it make it? How much more comfortable were you even going to the American League where Reimer wasn't a part of it, but just in that pro environment because of all the exposure you've had to these guys, whether it's on the ice in Net 360 or, like you said, working out with Adam Francilia and all these other guys in the summers?
Yeah, definitely super comfortable. I think just kind of for the past 4 years and 4 summers here, I kind of always say you're the sum of your 4 best friends. So whoever you surround yourself with, that's who you're going to become. So I think when you surround yourself with NHL players, like the odds are you're going to kind of try and be there one day and you're going to do everything you can to be there. So I think that's just kind of something that I've kind of held myself to for the last little while, is just surrounding yourself with the right people. And yeah, so it's coming up to pro and just kind of being in the pro environment was a pretty easy transition just with the guys and stuff, just because that's who I've been around for the last kind of 4 summers. So for sure.
Okay, so what is the biggest jump? Because like I said, a lot of guys over the years have told me that's the hardest one. What do you think allowed you, besides that comfort level, to make the transition to the AHL? Apparently relatively smoothly, at least for those first 6 games. And I know it's just the start, but what is the hardest thing? What did you surprise you that was hard or easy, or how, in terms of making that move? Because it's a biggie.
Yeah, I think just like what everyone says, guys are bigger, shoot a little bit harder. But I think for me, like my game in junior was pretty, like I had to kind of play the right way in junior. There was no kind of, I couldn't really get by just on my size, and I couldn't just kind of move around and let pucks hit me. Like to play well in junior, I had to have my feet set. I had to be hitting my spots all the time. Whereas I think some guys maybe get to the pro level and then they realize that they have to be hitting their spots and getting their feet set. So for me, it's just something that I've had to do for the last kind of 3 or 4 years here in junior to make saves. So I think coming up to pro, already having that kind of base of just the skating and the tracking and all that stuff has made it definitely smooth. So,
okay, so you touched on foundations there. For those that don't know you and have yet to discover your game at the pro level, Can you explain some of those pieces and what allows you to succeed? And how many times have you been asked, probably already or throughout your career, about size and having to, how do you have success and make transitions like this, as a 6-foot goaltender at a time when that's probably why you weren't drafted, right? Like things like that can hold you back, perception of size and how you overcome it.
Yeah, I think like I always hear kind of some conversation about it, and I always hear like some talk about my size, but I've never really thought too much about it, because I think if you let that get in your head that you're an undersized goalie and that like the odds of you making it aren't high and you have to be whatever size to play, I think that's all kind of changing a little bit, because I think if you can stop the puck, you can stop the puck. So for me, it's just been all about kind of my skating and making sure that you're square, you're set for every shot. You're never kind of reaching or having to, I mean, occasionally you have to kind of make a big diving save or stretch out. But for the most part, if you manage during a game to just stay in front of the puck and just kind of skate on every puck and just set your feet, then the odds are you're going to be in a good position to make that save. So I think that's been the biggest thing for me, is just your skating and just your tracking and just setting your feet. So that's been definitely the biggest thing. Okay,
skating on every puck. Explain that for those who might not maybe be familiar with a phrase like that. Like, what do you mean that? How do you think of your skating tying to your tracking and the elements that set you apart in terms of, because we've heard this throughout the pause, whether it was Billy Ranford or other goalie coaches around the league, other goalies we've talked to, as everybody's sort of taken a step back and gone back to school a little bit, use that time, that phrase keeps coming back, set and square, and being there and in position early. I think more and more recognition, as simple as it sounds, that is the foundation of success at all levels. How do you go about doing that? I don't want to say better than the next guy, but at the best you can. And how have you gotten ahead on those steps?
I think it's for me, it's about kind of less is more in a way. Kind of if you can eliminate the delay in your movements and just kind of always be in a position that you can access your feet and can access your edges, it just makes a world of difference, because you can, when there's kind of broken plays or just like little things like that, you always have access and you can always move. But yeah, I think it's just being able to kind of like track passes all the way, not just kind of see a pass being made and then try and guess where your spot should be. It's about knowing where your ice is and where you can take your ice, and kind of how much net is behind you. And I think it's just a lot of it, kind of something I've talked with Paul here a lot about, is just kind of finding the middle and just kind of skating through the middle a lot. Just so you can, I think it's just the biggest thing is just staying in front of the puck and not getting outside your kind of crease area, and more efficient you can make it, the better. So
Paul, of course, being Paul Sean Felder, goaltending coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, who we're happy to say, like, we humble brag that we had him on the on a webinar and the old InGoal in-person webinars last summer. So thanks to him for that. When you say access to your edges, I think a lot of people, they might go, okay, what does he mean by that? Is that just sort of keeping them underneath you back, like making sure that they're not extended to the point where you can't stop or turn, like you said, to react to a broken play or a puck off a leg, like sort of that contained everything underneath you? Is that, I'm kind of putting words in your mouth and I don't want to, but is that am I right when you say access to edges? That's what you're thinking?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's just kind of keeping your feet underneath you, and just kind of, in a better way to explain it is just always being able to move on a puck. So if a guy gets the puck on the dot and he gets a pass there, you don't just get stuck. If he makes another pass, then you're too wide in your stance, or you're kind of, your feet aren't set. Say you're kind of drifting forward on the pass. Then if he passes a backdoor, you can't move because you're still moving. So I think if you can just find your spots, set, and then if it's a pass, then you can move again and set. So it's always just trying to set your feet whenever you can.
Okay, so we've wandered all over here because I'm such a lousy interviewer. I've taken you to all these different spots and all these different philosophies. Can we rewind a little bit? We'll just zip it back. And, even before the Net 360 camp and that picture of you with James Reimer in 2015, where'd the passion for the position start? Like, how did Beck Warm become a goaltender? What made you fall in love with it?
I think I'm the youngest brother in my family, so I think started just with road hockey, being kind of forced to go into the net. But I think it wasn't so much forced. I always loved the gear and loved like seeing goalie gear and stuff like that. So I think a big part of it was just kind of wanting to be a goalie for the equipment. And I don't know. I think that's somewhat common for guys starting. Just kind of like
Those are
like,
two most common answers for sure.
Yeah.
The youngest brother and love for the gear. So you hit the combo there.
yeah. So definitely both there.
Okay, so and when did it become something that went from out with the brothers to onto the ice and hey man, this is something I'm pretty good at? When did it become serious? When did you get your first goalie coach? And this answer varies, believe me, depending on the generation of goaltender I'm talking to. I'm guessing you're going to be a lot sooner than say James Reimer, for example, who I think got his first goalie coach in junior.
Yeah. I think probably in Adams. So I don't know how old you are there, like 10 maybe. I was
Okay.
I made I grew up in Whistler, BC, so not a massive hockey town, but we had two teams. We had a house and rep team. And I made the Adam rep team my first year. So thought it was a pretty big deal to make that team. So I was pretty pumped about it and kind of started to get a feeling that like, oh, like maybe I could do something here. And like, I want to make a go at it. So, yeah, I think probably got my first kind of training with Sean Murray when I was probably around that age, probably 10 or 11. And yeah, just kind of, I still work with Sean to this day, in the summers, try and get on the ice with him quite a bit. So, yeah, no, he's definitely been there since the start.
And so, okay, so working with Sean at a young age, as you get older and you start to have some success and start to make other teams, that gap, the bantam draft is a big one for a lot of guys. You don't
Yeah.
get picked. Just walk me through the mindset. You don't get picked. Like here we are 6 years later, and we're having a conversation. You're on the road with an NHL team, living that NHL COVID hotel life, unfortunately. But you're in the National Hockey League right now. And 6 years ago, you weren't, or I guess it would be 7 years ago for your bantam draft. Like you weren't drafted. The mindset at the time and how you moved forward, like was it upsetting, or was that something where you weren't looking at the bantam draft at that stage and the WHL as I need to make this, or this is the logical next step? Where was the mindset then?
Yeah, no, I definitely wanted to get drafted. All your buddies, like kind of your first year bantam, you see all your buddies get drafted, and you're going into your draft year, you're like, oh, like that would be cool. Like I'd love to get drafted, and kind of you definitely think about it. And I ended up not getting drafted, and but it didn't really change my mindset. I remember someone came out to me and said, this isn't the end. Like, don't give up. And for me, I was like, whoa, like, what do you mean give up? Like that was never even like, that was the first time the thought came to me when someone said it to me, like, oh, like you can't give up now. And I was like, oh, well, that was never the plan. So like, thank you. But yeah, I always knew I kind of wanted to play in the Western Hockey League, and then was fortunate enough to get a camp invite my kind of that summer after I didn't get drafted, and got listed by Tri-City, and then kind of signed later that year and played my first game when I was 15, which learned a lot from that one. That game did not go great, but definitely
I saw the 795. The numbers almost match. 795 save percentage and an 8.0 goals against average. Those are not the ones you want to start with. Hey, like that's a tough first experience.
Yeah, it was tough. I just remember kind of looking at it like it showed me exactly what I need to work on though. Like it showed me exactly the things I need to get better at. It showed me exactly where I need to be to play in that league. So at the time it was pretty disappointing, and it was not the way you want to start your career, but everything happens for a reason. And I learned so much from that, and it definitely helped me going forward.
Okay, so I'm curious about the timeline there, because that's your first taste. Like you said, you're 15 years old in the Western Hockey League.
Yeah.
Stuff's going to happen, right? And yet we're at that point. That would have been the summer that first picture we would have seen at Net 360 and that camp, and with James Reimer. And was there anything that you remember way back then to that, what that camp did for you, what that experience did for you? Because you guys were, I was there that year too. And So you've got all these NHLers around, and the junior guys go on at different times, but you're around them all the time.
Yeah.
What did that do for you coming off your first taste of the WHL and the numbers I just mentioned? What was that summer like for you, and what role did something like Net 360 play in it?
Net 360 just helped kind of bring that belief and kind of make that belief stronger in a way. Just kind of being surrounded by those guys and seeing them on the ice and seeing all the things they do well. And I think just it also shows like when they're at the rink, like even if it's in the summer, they're there to work and they're there to get better at their game and kind of master their craft. And then once you're in the room after and say you go out to dinner and stuff, like you have fun and you chat and it's laughs and stuff. But when you're on the ice and you're in the rink and you're kind of doing your stuff, like everyone's there to get better. And I think that was a good lesson to learn, just that when you show up to the rink and you get on the ice, like you need to have something to work on. You need to have a plan in a way. And I think all the Net 360 camps that I've been to have kind of shown that everyone's there wanting to get better and everyone's there trying to do the same thing. So it's definitely helped a lot.
Are you looking forward to being back on the pro side?
I am, yeah.
No, I don't know. There was no camp. At least you guys did get together last summer, but we didn't come, obviously with COVID and everything. So you may have been. It was a different year. So you may have been on the other side of that already. I remember a couple of years ago having NHL goalie coaches watch you in the junior side and say, this kid needs to be on the pro side. So there's that. But I mean, when you look back at it though, knowing the impact that had for you, does it change your mindset with other young goalies?
Yeah, I think, so going back to like the camp last summer, it was a smaller group. So it was all kind of pro guys there. So that was kind of my first Net 360 being with, just the pro group. But, I think for the younger kids and stuff, kind of skating in the summer and being around pros, I think you just got to ask questions and you got to talk to them. Like all the guys at the pro level, like they'd be happy to answer your questions and kind of talk to you about things and like help out. Like everyone loves to talk and discuss things about kind of hockey and the game and everything. So I think my biggest thing is just don't be afraid to ask questions and like put yourself out there and kind of, and just talk, which is something that I think I struggle with sometimes, kind of like putting yourself out there and going to ask a question. But I think, everyone loves it and everyone loves to talk. So
you're talking to a guy who gets ripped all the time on this program for talking too much. So there you go. Do you remember, are there any that jump out at you? Because you would have had opportunities to have conversations with different guys over the years. Was there one that was not necessarily more impactful, but was there a moment over all those years? Because you've been at that camp every year since 2015 that jumps out at you where there was whether it was a light bulb moment or just sort of something new that you learned, not so much technically, but in terms of, the approach, the mindset, the lifestyle, what you need to do to be where you are today.
I think there's probably a ton of moments like that. But I remember, I think it was probably my first year when Eddie Lack was there. And I remember we were doing a drill together and I was 15 or 16 and he was just kind of sitting there talking to me like in between reps and wasn't talking down to me at all. Like he was talking to me like an equal. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever because we were just kind of just talking hockey, just kind of two guys talking hockey. And he was a NHL goalie and I was going into my first year midget or second year midget. So it was, I think that was a big moment for me where it was like, okay, yeah, like if I ever make to that level, like I want to be like that. And I want to treat the younger guys like they're an equal. And that was definitely impactful.
Nice. Tri-City, career at Tri-City. And then obviously the last year, 1920, which like I got to think that time existence is strange vacuum now. That was technically last season. Splitting time with the Oil Kings after a sort of trade deadline acquisition, and then the season gets shut down. Like, what's your lasting memory of junior hockey, and where do you think your game evolved? Because that's 4 years. Where do you think your game evolved the most from that first appearance as a 15-year-old to 2 years later being there full time?
I think probably the start of my 19-year-old year was where there was a big mindset shift of just kind of just trusting yourself and just trusting your game. And I think a big help with that was like our head coach, Kelly Buckberger. He just showed that he trusted me and he showed that he wanted me in the net. And I think that was massive for me, just kind of building that confidence and that self-belief through games. And I think I started like 62 games that year out of 68 or something like that. So that was a big year for me, just kind of building that self-belief even more, and just kind of realizing like to play, you have to be able to clear your mind and just trust your game and trust your foundation. And I've always said like you're your best goalie coach. Like at the end of the day, when it's game time and the puck drops, like you're the only one out there, and you got to be a goalie coach for yourself. And however you do that, it's the best way for you. So
I hear that a lot. And we've talked about some of the influences. You mentioned Sean Murray. Obviously, you're in the camp with lots of different voices at Net 360, different goalie coaches you get to work with. I know you've done some work with Lyle Mast. How do you get to that point where you are your own goalie coach? Like, where you don't feel like you have to go to others for advice, where you know your game enough to trust your foundation and your ability to reset to it. Like, we always probably all need other voices at times. How do you find that balance between not becoming over-reliant on them?
I think it's definitely a learning process. I've worked with a ton of different goalie coaches throughout the years, like Sean and Lyle and Eli and Tri-City. There's just been a ton of different guys that I've had the opportunity to work with. So I think some people get stuck where they think that only one goalie coach is all they need. They just need one goalie coach, and that's all. So I think having a ton of different voices and being very open about it is important, because the more opinions you can get, the more you can build your own game, and you can build kind of your own game plan out there. So I think it's definitely a learning process to kind of figure out what works for you. And because like I said, at the end of the day, you're the one that's out there, and you need to figure out like the right save selections for you and what works for you. So I think the biggest thing for me is just trusting yourself and kind of believing in yourself. And I know that's super cliche, but that's at the end of the day, I think that's the bottom line, is just trusting your game.
Now, you're a guy who thinks the game really well, has an understanding, I think, of the foundation we talked about earlier really well in terms of your movement and the mechanics and the biomechanics. And I know you've done that work with Adam Francilia as well. As a thinker, where's that line between all those things you just talked about in terms of understanding your game and trusting your game, or recognizing save selection when it's off? Like, are you thinking about save selection? Say a puck goes in. Are you thinking about that at the time? Like, where's that balance between a guy who really thinks the game deeply and needs to sometimes just go out and play it? Can you get caught up too much? It's paralysis by analysis. Is that something that you've had to work on avoiding? And if so, like how do you do it? Like, because that's not an easy balance to find as well. It just seems like, again, we're talking to you in your first pro season here, but it seems like you've found a lot of those balance points yourself over the years.
Yeah, I think that's something that I used to struggle with a lot, because like you said, I like to think the game a lot. So in my kind of 17, 18-year-old years in Tri-City, I think that's something that I struggled with, was just overanalyzing and thinking too much. So like I said, my 19 year was, I kind of turned the page and just kind of went out there and played. And it's just about kind of having one or two things that you say to yourself during the game, and just keeping it super simple. Like in the game, I never think about kind of the technical side or anything like that. It's just, for me, it's just trusting yourself. And I know I've said that a lot, but I think it's just, like just not overthinking anything during a game, like asking yourself a few kind of positive questions. But I don't tend to overanalyze anything anymore during games, just because there's no need for it. Like, you practice so much, and in practices you can think about the technical side and think about just like different things that you can do in certain situations. But for games, it's just going out there and playing.
Okay, so one or two things that you like to, now do those change on a week to week, game to game basis, or are those part of your staple and foundation? And totally up to you, because some guys don't like to, but like, can you share those? Because not everyone's the same in terms of wanting to share what their little, I remember Michael DiPietro would write it in his blocker. And it changed over the years. He had little acronyms that he used, and one year it would be one thing and the next year it would be the other. Like, have yours changed, or are they the same? And can you share any that you've used over the years?
Yeah, mine have kind of stayed the same over the last couple of years. Honestly, usually I just say, like, if I'm ever kind of in a break or the whistle goes, and ever find myself my brain wandering or thoughts start to creep in of anything, I just kind of keep it simple and just tell myself, just the puck. And then I just kind of like, I'm a big breathing guy. So I focus on my breathing a lot. And if I ever catch myself kind of wandering with my thoughts or overthinking something, it just comes back to just the puck. And then, I think that usually just kind of settles everything down. And I definitely use some different techniques in games just to keep everything kind of calm and loose. But breathing is probably the most important thing for me.
I was going to say breathing's important for most of us. Usually for me, it's like heavy breathing because I'm out of breath. But can you share any of those techniques? And this I almost forgot. Like, obviously we saw you at the Pete Fry and John Stevenson event. This is a couple of years ago when they did these, I guess they're almost like mini symposiums where they went across and did their mindset clinics. And I'm hearing these catchphrases and these terms that you're using. Of course you work with Pete Fry. How important has he been to this whole process for you as we talk about being able to, I don't know if compartmentalize is a word he would use, but being able to sort of separate when you worry about certain things and making sure the ones you don't want to worry about aren't a part of your on ice process.
Yeah, no, Pete's been great. I've been working with Pete for a couple years now, and everything's just always super simple. It's always just kind of control what you can control. It's just kind of always about just doing the little things and just like things that are out of your control. Just there's no need to even think about it because I think in hockey, there's so little that you control. And so the things that you can't control, like you better be controlling those because like that's all you can control. So
give me an example. Things that you can versus that you want to make sure you're controlling going into a game.
Things you can control are your preparation, just how kind of the night before, if you're doing a little bit of visualization and maybe if you have the access, like taking an ice bath and stretching and just kind of little things like that. Because obviously preparation leads to confidence. So if you go into a game knowing that you've done everything you can to prepare yourself, then you'll naturally have that confidence. Whereas if you go into a game thinking, oh, maybe I should have stretched this morning, or maybe I should have done this last night, then that kind of creeps away your confidence and it starts to fade a little bit. And say, you don't come up with a save early in the game, then you start thinking, okay, well, that's because I didn't do this. And then it's just a snowball effect. So those are just little.
Or using language like didn't come up with a save versus let in a goal, as I heard that one right there as you said it.
Yeah. No, it's all about, with him, it's all about kind of creating pictures in your mind. And if you say, oh, I got scored on, your brain visualizes yourself getting scored on. Whereas if you say I didn't come up with a save, you kind of visualize yourself making a save. So it's just kind of like little techniques like that you kind of get in the habit of using that I think help a lot.
Nice. Love it. You mentioned having some breathing things. I won't make you do breathing exercises with us here on the InGoal Radio podcast, but you mentioned there are a couple other things. I know Pete's big on, physical. I remember we did this, like some guys would be tap the pads or, some guys like take the blocker and glove and tap them together. Little cues, little things that snap you into game time mode. Do you still use that? Do you have one? Can you share it? I'm putting you on the spot to share a lot of little things here.
Yeah, I think a big thing for him is just kind of using your body and your motions to kind of create a certain like hype level in your game, just to kind of get things going. For me, it's just whenever I do movements in the crease, kind of in between whistles, I just make sure it's all game speed and make sure everything's like super quick and super sharp. I know I used to when I was younger, when the whistle would go, you kind of just slowly skate to the corner, back to your crease, maybe stretch. And it kind of puts you into this kind of lulled phase in a little bit where you're just kind of, I don't know how to explain it. Like your nervous system's not activated. Your brain's kind of turned off. Whereas if you do everything super sharp and quick, like you're in the play, then your nervous system's going and your brain's ready. And then the next shot that comes down, you're ready for it. Whereas if you've just been sitting there, not doing much, stretching, you might be a little bit late on it, or it might kind of catch you off guard.
I've never actually heard that. I love that because you're right. That it's a little casual, that skate. And some guys use it effectively as a reset.
Yeah.
But if you're slowing things down and then the game is really quick, that might not match where you need to be in that next moment versus trying to, within the frame of a period and while you're playing, making sure you're staying at that quick pace. I love that.
Yeah, no, I definitely do my casual skates to the corner. But as soon as I get back to the crease, it's a couple quick movements, couple slides, and then just trying for my breathing. I try and just kind of get some deep breaths and kind of try and get myself going a little bit like that. I think for me, like I like to think I'm a pretty calm guy when I'm in net. So I kind of try to mellow my breathing. Whereas I know some goalies like to be super energetic and like lots of movement and stuff. So they like to bring the breathing up. But for me, I like to bring it down. Just helps me kind of think the game subconsciously more. So.
Okay, so your breathing's kind of a slow it down, and the quick movements are kind of a raise the hype level. And you use the phrase hype level. That's something you're very conscious and conscientious of in a game in terms of where your mind and where your body are.
Yeah. So like for me, I like kind of a lower hype level, just because I find it keeps my head clear. But I definitely still like kind of my nervous system and my body. I like that being nice and sharp and ready to go. But as for my brain, I like being very calm, and I don't think you'll ever see me in a game kind of losing my mind or like freaking out at all, just because everything's not in my control sometimes. So it's just I like to control what I control, and everything else I just kind of throw away.
So if you're throwing milk cartons from down the tunnel and chopping sticks in half over the back of the bar, you're getting a call from Pete because he knows that's not you.
Yeah, if you ever see me doing that, I think you should take a clip of that and send it to me and say something about it. But yeah, I don't think you'll see it.
All right, Beck. Well, hey, this has been lots more time than as usual. I mean, this is my other MO, is I go a little longer than I was supposed to. But hey, you're stuck in a hotel, so I had you prisoner here. And it's kind of cool that it's in the show, man. So congratulations on everything over the past couple of months. Pretty neat that you get to do it, get this first taste with James there. And thanks for spending the time with us. The stuff you just shared in terms of the mindset and, some of the technical stuff you talked about earlier, there are going to be a lot of goalies that listen to this that are going to, have a good think on it and sort of look at that advice much the way you probably did hearing from your mentors 6 years ago on the ice in terms of the steps they need to take. So I really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Yeah, no, thanks, Kevin. Really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. And all the best.
Okay, takeaways from that. And I didn't know a lot about Beck Warm before, other than seeing his name in the Western Hockey League. So that was enlightening, and his journey and growing up in Whistler. He's got a twin brother, Will, as well. I wonder if that went into like twin brother. One guy goes net, one guy's a shooter. Like boom, boom, away you go. You're shooting the puck, and one guy's always stopping it. His advice: one, when you get on the ice at the net 360, like it's business. It's focused. You can joke around before, you can joke around after, everything. But business on the ice and asking questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And he admitted that he's a bit shy himself, but force yourself, because don't be afraid of the answer coming back or how the person's going to react when you approach them. Be forward thinking, because everybody wants to give back a little bit, Woody.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the environment's like. I mean, and there's guys, he mentioned Eddie Lack, that conversation they had and how that struck him. We know about the time, his first time there with James Reimer. And obviously his comfort level's grown over the years as he's become, as Reimer said, family. But when you've got guys like that, Reimer, Lack, when he was playing, Devin Dubnyk. Devin Dubnyk, is, we heard when he did this, but like he's a guy who really thinks the position along the same levels, right? That type of detail. And, speaking of Doobie, actually, and that type of detail and a willingness and openness to sort of share how he approaches the game, we at InGoalMag.com and InGoal Premium have our biggest pro reads ever. We did, and I did this video with him a few weeks ago, and everybody saw the poke checks, the 2-part poke checks, because that's how detailed Doobie is. You can't do it in one part. We had a power play sequence against the Ducks about 3 weeks ago for the Sharks, early in the game, where Dubnyk makes, honestly, like 5 or 6 5-alarm stops. and the delayed penalty. There were several minutes on the delayed penalty there too. We could have taken this and broken it into 6 pro reads because there were so many different elements. We're talking about managing screens. We're talking about depth decisions. We're talking about post play, using your stick to cut off passing lanes. He talks about cross ice, lateral plays on the power play, when to use your feet, when you might have to slide. Like there were so many details in this video session with Dubnyk. We probably could have stretched it out over 6 months mixed in with all the other stuff. But we decided that our readers need to hear it all right now. It was too good to make them wait. 15-minute pro reads. 15 minutes of Devan Dubnyk on 1 delayed penalty and 1 penalty kill combined. And it is absolute gold. And I got to be honest with you, like I'm biased, obviously, but that 1 pro reads is worth the price of a subscription for an entire year. And it's one of just 67 video reviews with NHL goaltenders you get access to when you get InGoal Premium at ingoalmag.com.
It's like being able to sit down and just go to school on goaltending with the greatest teachers in the world who are doing it. Not just teaching it, but they're doing it at the same time. How do you go wrong with that?
I get so excited because I've been lucky enough to do a few of these with these guys, but it's mostly Woody. And then he'll pass me the video after one of these sessions to do some work with. And I get to go through all of them. And it's really exciting. I'm going to school and I'm calling Maddie over saying, you got to check this out. What a great opportunity to learn. And it almost feels like every guy is the best ever because there's a new take from everybody. It's not just the same thing every week. There's just so much to learn. And as Woody said, 67 of them. If somebody becomes an InGoal Premium member, you get to access all 67 of those, and there's going to be 1 a week for another year during your membership. So 100 and some odd. Guys, we've been around for a little more than a year now, and we've got up on the site 460 videos, whether it be pro reads or pro drills. And yeah, sometimes there's a couple per pro read as we show you the play, and then we talk about it with the pro. But there's just so much there. It's just been a really exciting year, and I'm thankful to be a part of it, boys.
It's outstanding. We see the present now, and we see the future coming in both InGoal Radio, the podcast, InGoal Magazine, and the Carolina Hurricanes with Beck Warm and James Reimer. Appreciate everybody tuning into this one. Hope you enjoyed it, and make sure you check out that Devan Dubnyk pro reads. It is awesome to just sit back and take it in. For Beck and for David and for Woody, are you trying to upload your file before?
No, see,
I stopped the podcast.
There was no. If I had cheated here, Darren, if I was cheating the pass,
you'd be in trouble right now.
If I was cheating the pass, I would not be able to talk to you right now because my mic would be off. So, as much as the head may have cheated for an early look to see where that puck was headed and what hand the shooter was at the other end of that pass, I did not cheat the pass. I'm waiting.
To explain this, when I start wrapping up, Woody usually stops recording his end of the podcast and tries to upload it because we have a little game, who gets to upload first, and I'm usually last because I have to sign off. So I was trying to catch him. I was going to dump it in the corner, and then I shot it on net, and he was right on it. So Woody, proving that he is brilliant in the field and brilliant on the ice, and is also brilliant in being able to read a release. Darren Millard, time to release you. Thanks for listening to InGoal Radio, the podcast.